Okay.
How we get here?
Good morning, Cedar Rapids. Hey, salutations. Okay.
Brothers, let us all unite!
You would rather have us keep the internet than have peace in the world. Like, no, I gotta have my internet.
Live in front of an internet audience. It is I, here on the I'm Clifford Today show. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Look at me. Sorry if my face is blinding you. I have a whole face under those glasses. For those of you who are listening instead of watching, I am not wearing any glasses today. Big reason is because I broke them a few days ago. Yes. Agent Serenity, welcome to the chat. Agent Serenity says you've unlocked a new form. Its power level is over 9,000. Yes, this is my new form. No, so yeah, I broke my glasses the other day, which is crazy because I was watching the countdown to the show today, and yeah, those are the same glasses that I've had since 2014. I've had them for 8 years. So I think it was just God saying, "Hey, you need a new look," you know. So I taped them together and I still use them for now. I do have some new ones ordered, a new frame ordered. Agent Serenity says I recommend electric tape if it was the frames that broke. Oh yes, already did that. In fact, Lisa did that and she made it look like nothing had happened. But then the tape got loose and so I had to redo it and now they look terrible. So that's why I'm not wearing them on the stream today. I use them when I have to drive around because I'm nearsighted. It's not like I'm completely blind without them. And I don't wear contacts. But so yeah, they just look terrible, so I'm not going to wear them on the stream, and you know, I'll manage without them. Although I won't be able, instead of having my monitor, my OBS monitor on my second monitor, I'm not going to do that because I won't be able to read it. So anyways, I have some new glasses, some new frames ordered. I actually needed to update my prescription anyways because I noticed that I was having trouble seeing things again. And so I was like, well, I guess, because I haven't had an eye exam in years. And so I finally got one. I got a new prescription, and so got some new glasses ordered. So you guys will probably see them in the next stream. And they're completely different than the ones that I've had. So it's going to be a new look for me. And I hope they look okay, because I did order them online. I have not tried them in person, but we're hoping that, you know, they look okay. So they're more of a thin frame than the thick frame that I've had for so long. So fingers crossed that it's a good look for me. Thankfully, the frames didn't really cost that much. So, and I guess I could always return them. I'm sure they have a return policy. Anyways, enough about me. Enough about my glasses. Intro music by John Bartman, johnbartman.com. Today, we are joined by Spectral Mornings by Steve Hackett. That is the album of the week. Don't forget that I have some new music from Sherwood Forest that is out. I have Even in the Wild's a new single that's out on all music platforms. However, I do have my new song, Noble Fantasy, that is only available on Bandcamp for now. I'm working on a new EP, and so when that's out, that's when Noble Fantasy will be on all streaming platforms. But for now, it's available for purchase on Bandcamp. SherwoodForest.bandcamp.com. Link in the description. And also don't forget that I got some merch. Link also in the description if you want some awesome shirts to rep the channel. Got some cool things to talk about today. Honestly, for the longest time, I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about today because there's nothing really going on that was really worth talking about for me personally. Last night, I actually realized that the Dove Awards happened, but I don't care about the Dove Awards, really. And it's a bunch of music that I haven't really listened to, so it's like, whatever. But, so I was actually going to, my original plan was to basically turn the whole episode into a review for Matt Maher's new album. But I was like, I don't know if I can make a whole episode about that. And I'm glad I didn't. And there's a new development today in the world of deconstruction, that whole conversation. And we're going to talk about it, and it has to do with a band that I listened to for a long time called Showbread. And so we're going to get to that. I do have some housekeeping to do. So just some things to get out of the way. I had someone complain to me that it's like, I would watch your podcast, but you take so long to get to the main point. I'm like, have you not heard any podcast ever? A lot of my favorite podcasts, they kind of take some time to just, get you to relax and get comfortable with the episode and like, okay, now we're going to get to the main stuff. I don't know. I don't really see the problem with that. I'm also just kind of warming up, so I'm sorry. I try to put timestamps in every episode. I need to do that more. But like, yeah, you can always just skip around. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. I'm sorry. Anyways, so last episode we had a big debate discussion on who was the better band, the better Christian band. And it was a battle between Newsboys and DC Talk. Now, spoilers for last episode if you missed it. I put a poll out on this Facebook music group that I'm a part of. It's called 90s Christian Music Days. And so I knew that they would definitely have a lot of opinions about who was the better band. And so I posted a poll on there. And sorry to say to all the Newsboys fans, but DC Talk won. DC Talk won that poll. And but it was an interesting discussion, because I like both bands, and so I liked exploring both ideas. I will say, though, YouTube has done something different. For those of you who use the YouTube app and, who are on YouTube often, certain channels were able to make posts on YouTube. Not like just video posts, but they're almost like Facebook posts. Like people could post statuses or polls or pictures even. It was like, like real social media. And only certain channels were able to do that. Probably only verified ones that like had a certain amount of subscribers. And so I was never able to do it. But now it seems that YouTube has kind of opened it up for everyone to do that, which is awesome because I've been wanting to do that for a while, just to update people on certain things, like certain more immediate things that I, would really be too much of a hassle to make a video about to update everyone. So it's great. And so now since I can do that, because I teased the idea in the last episode of doing more versus battles, between certain artists. And this way you guys can be more involved in what the poll results are whenever I do it again. And so I think that's pretty cool. So when I tease the idea, you guys had some encouragement and ideas in the last video. had some comments. Mr. Jesus Freak Eric, is a friend of the channel, said, yes, do DC talk and solo stuff ranking. I'm curious, what are your thoughts? Oh yeah, that was something, that was an idea that I teased. It's like, what if okay, yeah, so this has nothing to do with the versus battle, but I have done a Newsboys ranking their albums episode before, and so I thought, what if I did one for DC Talk? But there's not a lot of DC Talk albums. I guess I could include their solo stuff, like Toby Mac stuff, Tate stuff, and Kevin Mac stuff. Sorry, I won't get started on that. But yeah, so Mr. Jesus Freak Eric seems to think that that's a good idea. So someday I will do it. There is a lot of that. If I'm including solo stuff, that is a lot of albums to listen to. Kevin Max has a lot of stuff out there, even more so than Toby Mac, I feel like. So yeah, one day I'll probably do that. And Joseph Shub says, do one on Steve Green or David Phelps. And, I already responded to this comment personally, but that would be interesting. I'm more familiar with Steve Green than David Phelps, but I'm not really as familiar with either of them. So it would be interesting for me to just, for me to dive down deep into their discography and have that discussion. I'd be totally down for that. David Shub also suggested, do one who is better, New Song or For Him. Both bands, I've also never really, listened to much of their music. I'm more familiar with New Song than For Him. But yeah, that would be an interesting one. If you guys have any suggestions, any recommendations, I'm totally for it. Because there's a bunch of artists that I could do that. I also had there was a highlight. I talked about the Winter Jam tour lineup on the last episode, and I posted a highlight video of that. And Killhawk, another friend of the channel, says that lineup isn't half bad. If though Denver, I would go. I think what he's trying to say is, if they were doing the tour in Denver, I would go. Which, yeah, a lot of people were complaining that they weren't really going to many places, but and yes, I already responded to this comment, but on the air, I will repeat that, yeah, it's not terrible, but really the only bands I'm like even slightly interested in is Disciple, which I haven't listened to their music in a long time, but I used to be a big fan. And Andy Mineo, which I only know like 2 songs by him, to be perfectly honest. I feel ashamed. I should know. I'm supposed to be the Christian music nerd, the world's busiest Christian music nerd. And I haven't really listened to a whole lot of Andy Mineo. Probably it's because I don't listen to a lot of hip hop personally. So yeah. And just a reminder, I have decided that I'm going to do a video on Winter Jam when it comes to Peoria. I'm going to be there and I'm going to make a video. So that's going to be fun. Excited about that. Agent Serenity says, may I recommend one? How about Skillet versus 1,000 Foot Crutch? Ooh. Welcome to the masquerade. That would be interesting. That would be interesting because I used to be a big fan of both of those bands. Some of you may be familiar that lately I haven't been as much of a big fan of Skillet. Not really my thing. I did have like my new metal phase. Not so much anymore, but I would be willing to have that conversation. I think the fact that I don't really care about the artists that much will make the conversation even more interesting. So, yeah, I do like some of Skillet's older stuff. You are my hope. You gotta sound like that you're constipated. You are my light. You're everything. Everything. No, that's not really even John Cooper's sound. That's more like, I don't know who that is. Anyways, yeah, that'd be an interesting conversation. So keep the recommendations coming. I think that's all for housekeeping. Yeah. So we're still going to get to the deconstruction conversation. We're still going to get to the Josh dies conversation. But there was a little something that I wanted to share with you guys that everyone just has to know about this. This maybe some of you have come across this video. And it's unfortunate because I was going to talk about this in the last episode and it would have been perfect because it was closer to spooky season. I know we're past spooky day, we're past Halloween, but everyone needs to know about this. The scariest, worst music video, I guess technically Christian music video I have come across. And the world needs to know about this. Even though it has like, how many does it have? It has, where are the views? I want to see the views. Oh, okay. YouTube is making it harder to find view counts. It has over 5 million views. Agent Serenity says, do it. I'm going to do it. And it's going to haunt your nightmares, I'm sure. But I came across this video because it was an ad. It was an ad on YouTube. And I thought that I was like in some sort of fever dream or something. I'm like, what the heck is this? And I can't really describe it. All I can really do is just play it for you. And it's a song called Peace by Casanova Ace and DJ Staunch. And it's weird because it's more of a lyric video than a music video, but the reason why I'm calling it as a music video is because the title says official music video. So hey, if it says it's a music video, then we're going to call it a music video. And I'm going to say it's the worst music video I've ever seen. Agent Serenity says, with those names, are you sure it ain't a parody? LOL. I don't think it is. I don't think so. But anyways, and I'm sorry to all you audio listeners. I think you're going to get a treat just by listening to the song because the song is terrible too. So, but I'm sorry that you're not going to be able to get the visual feast. But anyways, without further ado, here is Peace. Oh, wait. No, what the heck? Ah, come on. It changed my video. That's not what I wanted. Hold on. This is a disaster. What happened? That was the video for what we're talking about next. Okay. Hold on one second, guys. I'm probably gonna disappear from the stream for a second. Oh wait, no, I'm actually here. Okay. So just ignore that. And I'm gonna put the actual video in. Man, this is so anticlimactic. This is not what I wanted. Come on. All right, here it is.
The election had us all concerned. Some people got blood boiling, it burns like the purge, the urge to release the beast.
Are you seeing this?
Forget peace, the weather black, white, or brown or green. Remembering Martin Luther King had a dream.
Are you seeing what's on this video right now on this screen?
We are our brothers protesting.
What is that?
But remember one thing, there is a lie. Letting all negativity cease. Remembering one thing, and there's peace.
Don't do that. Don't open your mouth like that. Oh, man. Okay, so if anyone... So for those of you who are not watching this right now, it's some sort of... The video has some sort of creature on the screen. And he's like got hair all over him. Hold on. I have to stop it. Agent Serenity says, I love it. Thank you for making my day. Can you imagine what I was thinking when this came on my screen? It's like this creature, and later on in the video, it goes down and you see it's more of a human body. So it's kind of like a Bigfoot looking thing. It's got like white fur on its face, and it's like moving around and like looking around and kind of opening its mouth a little bit and changing its facial expression. And it reminds me of those like deep fake, those bad deep fake videos that are out there where you can like this app where you can have like Hitler singing "Video Killed the Radio Star." If you've ever seen those things, that's the kind of movement that it's giving. And that's what's on the screen while this song is playing that has nothing to do with anything. What's going on with the video has nothing to do with the song. The song is like some sort of weird political video. Anyways, we just gotta keep playing. Can I? Gosh dang it. There we go. Go ahead and a little bit. Agent Serenity says it looks like the end of a caribou. Why can't we have peace? Song's actually a bop. Just kidding. It's really bad. 10 out of 10 for a mascot. They're a genius for finding a way to have View's eyes glued to the screen. I mean, it's true. Oh, viewers, yeah. Why does he open his mouth like that? It's so creepy. Had a dream. We are all brothers. Agent Serenity says it's psychological, man. See, look, it's like going down, and he almost has like a bear's body. Yeah, because at first you think that the face is like the whole body, but it's not. It's like the top of the body. And it's just so creepy. It's just his face is all white, but the rest of his fur is brown. And he's just looking at the screen, like staring into your soul. This is a neat piano solo, I will say that. And that's it. I'm doing that because he's moving his mouth like that. Bear mixed with the caribou, I'm calling it. I don't know. I have no idea. He's like some sort of Bigfoot looking creature. I don't know. But isn't that just horrifying? And you look at the video, because like that showed up as a video, as an ad on YouTube, and I'm like, I gotta look this up, and like investigate what it is I actually just saw. And I did, and the description is just so weird, because that whole song was just very politically charged. Remember Martin Luther King had a dream. Hey, yeah, protesting. Hey, that's fine, but remember, it's like a bad Christian 90s rap or something. So the video is from a YouTube channel called Staunch Moderates News. And just a reminder, the song is by Casanova Ace and DJ Staunch. So Staunch Moderate News. And the description of the video says, the Staunch Moderates intellectual movement and our bigger-than-life mascot, DJ Staunch. I don't know if that's the rapper or this creature that's on the screen. We encourage all of you curious listeners to digest our very chill, genre-bending hip-hop album, The First Realm, in its entirety, all 14 songs. I gotta listen to that album to really experience the true essence of what our movement is all about. Its melodious story of our journey through the 2020 election and pandemic year, a current-day Hamilton musical, so to speak. So that's the vibe that they're going for, I guess. I don't know why they gotta have this creature on here. That's all I can call him. We address what the movement is all about. Peace. The various big characters supporting it, a few iconic liberal and conservative American personalities, American culture through its beloved game of baseball. What? And the major challenges our society is dealing with today. Please enjoy. Agent Serenity says, bruh, it's the start of an ARG. I'm not sure if I know what an ARG is, or ARG. I'm not sure. It's like a concept album or something. Anyways, it also says, Staunch Moderates is a grassroots and intellectual movement that was founded in Aspen as a single-purpose initiative to address the political divisiveness in society and how coronavirus... and now coronavirus. I thought it was just ending with and how coronavirus. The goal of our movement is not to pitch you any particular political party or candidate, nor try to convince you to make any specific issue. It's like some sort of moderate kind of organization. But the comments on this video are incredible, because sometimes you just got to look at the comments and make sure that you're not going crazy. And someone commented, if you came here because you saw this ad and needed to make sure it actually existed because you were worried you might have been hallucinating, you are not alone. My favorite one is this comment. Nice to see my night terrors spreading such a positive message. That creature almost gave me a heart attack when I got this video as an ad. I saw this at 1 a.m. and have literally been trying to find it for weeks. This creature has not been able to leave my mind at all. This comment. The fact that someone made this and then said, Yee, this slaps, has me rolling with laughter, fear, and utter confusion. I don't know why this exists, but I'm happy it does. Yeah, so you're welcome, everyone. Oh, alternate reality game. That's an ARG. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm in an alternate reality. Oh, yeah. Agent Serenity says, wondering if they are somehow connected to PP's theme. Weirdest ad I ever got. Yeah, it's funny because Lisa said the exact same thing because she showed me that video a while ago. And I don't think so, because PP seems to be a real thing. You can buy a PP, and it's just I think it's a purposefully weird ad just to, get people's attention. And I think you can buy a PP as far as I know. It's so weird. I shouldn't be saying this on stream. A PP, Peepy, PP. But yeah, I think it's a different thing. This is like, I don't think that they're very self-aware with how weird this video is. Like, I don't, if they're on drugs. And I looked at their channel and it's just like weird, like political videos and no music videos that I could see. But I'm going to have to do some investigating on this. Maybe listen to the whole album and have a review if there is an album out there and report back to you guys. But I just thought that just this video by itself is really hilarious without context and also horrifying. So anyways, there's some good Christian music for you. One people under God, why can't we have peace? Oh man, so good. Good bars, good lyricism. If this is what's happening for show number 20, I can't wait for show number 30. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is show number 20, by the way. Congrats everyone, we made it this far. Yeah, who knows where this show is going to take us. But anyways, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I wanted to bless you with that. We're going to get to the more serious stuff, the more grounded in reality, grounded on this earth stuff. Thank you for indulging me. But we're going to take a break before we get into the more serious stuff. Excuse me. So don't go away. It's just got to make a little bit of money, I guess. What little money I make. Well, it's okay. It's fun. So don't go away. Don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
All right. Why am I getting a call just as I'm getting back on the show? Don't call me. Sorry. Okay, we're back. That didn't take long, did it? So. No, stop. No, I don't need FaceTime to open up while I'm doing a show. Stop. Oh, gosh. Sorry about that. You guys probably heard that too. So, what we're talking about today, we're going back to the deconstruction conversation. But it's only because, I know we had a whole episode. I had a whole episode addressing that whole topic, and you guys can watch it. I think it's literally called the Deconstruction episode, just because it's the huge elephant in the room that you need to address. But I'm talking about it because there's been some new news. You know, there's been all these artists, all these Christian artists and Christian celebrities and figures, I get, if you can call them celebrities, who are either leaving the faith or becoming more progressive in their doctrine, and basically, I mean, you know, basically leaving the faith anyways, because they've, you know, let go of any kind of doctrine that is specifically Christian, you know, any kind of doctrine that makes you a Christian. Just all these news about all these artists, you know, we've talked about them. There's Kevin Max, Michael Gungor, Derek Webb, Martin, what's his name? The guy from Hillsong. He wrote a lot of Hillsong stuff. Marty Sampson. I think that's his name. And then you got like the I Kiss Dating Goodbye guy, Joshua Harris. You know, all these big figures who are deconstructing and encouraging deconstructing. And the only people, you know, there are big figures that are speaking out against it, more namely John Cooper from Skillet. You got Elisa Childers, who's originally from Zoe Girl. If anyone, for anyone who doesn't know that, she's now just mostly a podcaster and an author. So they've spoken out against it. I know David Crowder has also chimed in on the conversation. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, but I wish more of the artists that I actually cared about would speak out against it. Because it just kind of seems that if you're a creative and a musician in the Christian world, and you know you're the kind of person who's just really creative and going against the grain musically, chances are you're going to be a liberal and a progressive, and you're going to encourage deconstruction. So I've kind of been, you know, losing hope in that area. But something happened this past week that was really encouraging for me, and I just wanted to share with you guys, spend some time on it. I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with the band Showbread. Showbread is a very interesting band that, you know, is a band that I really liked. In fact, I've used their music before in videos that I've made. I know I used their song, one of their songs in my top 10 worst Christian pop songs of 2020. The Let's Ruin Everything, Everything Gets Ruined, Everything. And I used them more recently at the beginning of my audio feed video. And they're a very unique band that has a very unique style. Like some people might say that it's like hardcore, but it's not really metal. Musically, it's like rock and roll punkish, but with a lot of like electronic influence in it. And there's a lot of screaming over it. And it's great. I love it. They're always a band that I loved. A lot of albums that I like are The Fear of God, No Sir, Nihilism is Not Practical, and their final album, because they broke up as a band, Showbread is Show Dead, which I think is probably their best album. And in fact, I've been wanting to do a video on them. I want to do a video on Showbread and The Chariot on the fact how they ended their careers with their best album. It's sort of like an essay video, but I'll get around to that someday. I haven't even started on it because I have so many other videos that I'm working on. But anyways, that's my introduction to Showbread. They were a tooth and nail band, and so they were very, they were part of that community of like hardcore bands, alternative bands, and such. And so their lead singer, Josh Porter, not Josh Hunter, Joshua Porter. After the band, split up, it was on good terms, but it was just the kind of thing where they just decided to call it quits. But Joshua Porter became a pastor and a writer, and he's written 1 or 2 books. I actually haven't read them, but I want to, just one of these days. Joshua Porter is also a podcaster. He has a podcast called We Hate Movies, and it's pretty fun because I do like movie discussions, and he just brings on a bunch of his friends, and they talk about movies. But anyways, so Joshua Porter is a pastor, and apparently he's like really into theology and such, which is really encouraging. And he was on this podcast, the Provoke and Inspire podcast, which Provoke and Inspire is an organization that I've been familiar with for a while. I think they were originally Come and Live, and Come and Live was an organization where, they released good Christian independent music, and they encouraged, being very God-centered and ministry-centered in their music. And so now I think they changed their name to Provoke and Inspire, and now they're a podcast that includes Chad Johnson, who used to work for Tooth and Nail. So anyways, I'm just doing my best to paint this whole picture. And Joshua Porter was on the episode recently, and I was surprised to see not really surprised, but just, pleasantly surprised to see him on there. And the title was Death to Deconstruction. And I was like, oh, interesting. And it turns out Joshua Porter has written a book called Death to Deconstruction. And it's not out yet. Or what day is it? It's supposed to be out on the 15th. So I haven't read it yet, but I want to. It's on my Christmas list. So if I don't get it for Christmas, I'm going to buy it myself because I am definitely interested. And so he was on the Provoke and Inspire podcast to talk about deconstruction. And, I was very excited to check that out. And it's just really encouraging to me because, like I said, it seems like a lot of my favorite Christian artists are turning progressive because it's something to do with like psychologically how like the more creative that you are, and the you're gonna have a personality that wants to like bend the rules a little bit. I've tried to do that creatively in my music, but it just seems to be a law of nature that if the more creative you are, the more progressive that you are, the more likely you're going to, be very liberal in a lot of your views. And so I always feel like the odd one out because with all the music that I like and all the movies that I like, I feel like I'm the only one that is conservative, that likes a lot of those things. And so it's easy to feel alone. And, it's cool that like John Cooper and Elisa Childers and such, that they, that they're not like that. But it's like, yeah, but I don't really like their music, so it's encouraging to have someone like this to speak out because like they're basically that whole community of like Tooth and Nail and solid state bands, if you're in a metal band or whatever, a lot of those people have just gone, they've left. You got your Aaron Gillespie's and Zayo, bands that used to be known as Christian bands, and they're like, no, we're not that anymore. So So Joshua has some interesting insight on that whole thing because he talks on the podcast about how he technically kind of went through his own deconstruction phase, but there's a reason why he still believes and still follows Christ, and so he talks about that. I'm gonna get some long clips to go through, and I'm gonna try and interlude is. Not interlude, but interject. That's the word I want. Interject as much as possible, but it's just going to show a couple clips. I highly encourage everyone to just go check out that podcast, Provoke and Inspire podcast with it's the latest one with Joshua Porter. So anyways, here's that discussion that he has on the podcast.
I think one thing that I add to the conversation, I don't mean to sound presumptuous or arrogant, because obviously there's been a lot written about some would call it the phenomenon of deconstruction. I prefer to call it something like a fad, the fad of deconstruction. And there's some fantastic resources and great books that are already written.
Is there an echo? I'm sorry. Oh, you're not hearing it? Ah, crap. Are you hearing it at all? Shoot. Gosh dang it. So it was just silence for that whole time. Oh, that's why. Okay. Well then, I'm going to do my best to edit those sections out when I upload this and when I put it on the podcast. So we're going to have to restart that. I'm sorry, everyone. Let's see. Let me know if it works now.
Well, I think one thing that I add to the conversation, I don't mean to sound presumptuous or arrogant, because obviously there's been a lot written about some would call it the phenomenon of deconstruction.
Cool.
I prefer to call it something like a fad, the fad of deconstruction. And there's some fantastic resources and great books that are already written. I mentioned a lot of them in my book. But something that I noticed over innumerable conversations with folks in my church, or as a musician traveling, or as a writer, just with peers, with friends, with people that I once knew in the music industry or in church circles, was that the more that I sat down and had conversations with jaded post-evangelicals or people who had deconstructed and thus deconverted from orthodoxy or the kind of historic apostolic Jesus movement, was that I have all the same reasons to not follow Jesus anymore. And in fact, and I don't mean this as if it's some kind of contest, but in many cases, I would sit with people and they'd tell me, this is why I have become estranged from my faith. This is why I no longer feel as if I can follow Jesus with integrity or be a part of the church, or however they want to describe it, identify as a Christian. And I would have all those same stories. I would have all those same, tragic little outposts on my timeline. And they would say to me often in these conversations, meetings, what's different about us? Why did you choose to stay when I'm choosing to go? And there weren't any of the obvious answers. It wasn't as if, my livelihood depended on identifying as a Christian. I have never profited from following Jesus to date,
Just wait till November.
This book's about to change that.
Wait till this book comes out, and then my integrity will be in question. But and it is.
So I'm just going to repeat what I said. I'm sorry, everyone watching live already heard me say this, but I got to say this since I'm going to edit out the part where there was just silence and nobody had any idea what I was talking about. But yeah, I think he makes a great point that like there really is hardly any benefit to remaining a Christian. No, like, well, what I mean is, like, what does anyone have to gain, like, financially or in terms of, like, fame or whatever? Not a whole lot. The world is making it harder and harder to, especially in the world that Josh lives in or lived in, like, in the band. He probably would have done much better if, you know, if Showbread was just no longer a Christian band, you know, with, like, everyone in that community just leaving the faith, you know, is becoming less and less cool to become a Christian. So I think I totally agree. It's just like, yeah, I mean, like I'm gonna remain a Christian, but you know, it's not like that I'm gaining anything, not anything worldly, at least. So, yeah.
If it's done me a lot of favors socially, or you know, in my history as an artist. In fact, you could make an argument that it's made things harder. And I don't mean that in some kind of tragic martyr kind of way. I just mean that there wasn't some obvious thing you could point to and say like, well, of course you're still a Christian because of this, you know. And so that was a question people would often ask me, why? How come? And I sat down to write a book that was going to be, you know, a thoughtful, intellectual, and theological defense of orthodoxy by saying, oh, well, these are the reasons people deconstruct. Here's really thoughtful arguments against those reasons. But those books already exist, and there's a lot that are really, really good. And when I sat down to write the book, I realized, combing my mind for all those conversations, that in my experience anyway, there are obviously lots of intellectual reasons that people abandon faith in Jesus. But for the most part, when I looked back over those interactions and conversations, I realized that the reasons people leave faith and leave the church are primarily emotional, and then they have intellectual kind of ties. There's intellectualism braided into it, and people have really thoughtful questions and pushback against what Christians believe. But most of the time, the conversations become inherently emotional. They were hurt, or they have been kind of bent and bruised by hypocrisy, or the things that they've seen, things that have happened to them, things that they've done, things that have been done to them. So what I ended up writing was
I'm also going to repeat what I said here. It's totally true that I find that most conversations that I've had with people who have left the faith and hearing from other people, you can just tell that it is very emotional. Like they may have all this, like all these facts and logic, you know, all that kind of stuff that, you know, they have to put in the conversation and to, you know, battle you intellectually. But you can just tell it's like you're angry. Like this is an emotional decision for you. Most people's stories that you can hear is that they're mad. They're mad at God, or they're mad at a pastor that wronged them. They're mad at a church that wronged them, or they're mad at their family that they feel wronged them. It's mostly all emotional. And I think all the intellectual reasons, I think they all come after, you know, and they're more just like, what would you call it? Just a way to affirm their decision, you know, and to convince themselves like, yeah, this is why I'm leaving the faith, because like it makes no sense. Because they can't deal with the fact that like, yeah, I'm leaving the faith, but like that doesn't change the fact that God is still real. So I have to convince myself that he's not. So yeah, I completely agree with what he's saying.
Of like this weird hybrid of a memoir, you know, my story of following Jesus and my own journey through deconstruction and my estrangement from evangelicalism and all the questions and wrestlings and doubt that I had, and mixed into that why I choose to continue to follow Jesus, and I come at those answers as both like, storyteller, like this has happened to me and here's why I believe, and as, as a pastor and someone who's interested in theology and the Bible.
I think that's...
Well,
no, we don't need
I think
you to...
one thing that
We already heard that. I heard it twice. So you're welcome, guys. What he's saying is making me really excited for his book because I think it's super important. Like you said, there's been a plethora of people who have, they've written books or they've spoken on podcasts or whatever, and they've given all the intellectual and smart reasons why, why Christianity is true, not just factually, but like spiritually. But I like how Josh is going to, his approach is more of on the emotional thing, and it's going to be, it sounds like it's going to be more personal. And I think it's going to be super helpful to a lot of people who have, because he's going to address a lot of the same questions that a lot of people have. And he's going to go through the same struggles that we've all gone through, a lot of the doubts that we've had, and a lot of the doubts that people who have left the faith have had. And I think that's going to be super helpful to a lot of people. And because at the end of the day, all any argument is going to do is just kind of going to further their doubt, because it's not like they haven't struggled with a lot of these questions and all of these intellectual facts and such. At the end of the day, it is very emotional. And I think that's going to be what inevitably, hopefully, wins people back, is to tell your personal story. Because I think there's going to be a lot to relate to his story and the things that he went through. And, I think that's a great idea, just to be like, yeah, I had those same questions and struggled with those same things. But here I am, and this is why I'm still here. And I think that's super encouraging. Got another video that I'm going to have to make sure that the audio works correctly this time. And it's a longer one, but I wish I wrote down notes about what he's going to talk about. But, we're just going to continue to hear from him and make sure. Yeah, why did I?
So the inevitable sort of arrogance and rebellion of youth, and to varying degrees within people's personalities and proclivities.
Stop.
When you combine or couple together the inevitable hypocrisy of the way human beings live out their faith.
About what he's talking about is like, what do we do when, because a lot of the reason why people leave the faith is that there's hypocrisy in the church. And it's like, how do we actually deal with that? Because humans are messy, the church, so therefore the church is messy. And so how do we deal with that as Christians?
When you combine or couple together the inevitable hypocrisy of the way human beings live out their faith, right? That's never going away. And you combine that with what feels like also the inevitable sort of arrogance and rebellion of youth, and to varying degrees within people's personalities and proclivities. Do you feel like deconstruction is inevitable on some level, maybe even necessary on some level? And how do we even see that as a necessary thing in the church, and maybe help rather than freak out by it? Because you differentiate deconversion from deconstruction, and I think in a helpful way. How do we almost see that as a tool we can use, or a rite of passage that needs to happen, and we have to help come alongside people as they go through that Do you see what I'm trying to get
Yeah,
at here?
absolutely.
How do we reclaim that in the right sense of the word?
Well, this is where I think words matter a lot. I realize that the term deconstruction means a lot of different things to different people, and it has lots of different applications. And one of the things that came up immediately when the not so subtle title of my book was announced was, I thought deconstruction was a good and necessary and even inevitable thing. But I think personally, and I don't think this is a controversial opinion, that deconstruction and the kind of modern pop culture or spiritual pop culture vernacular has become a shorthand for bailing out on Jesus, or kind of dispensing with the trappings of historic Christianity and making up some kind of new fluid spirituality of your own design. And the actual Webster dictionary term kind of lends itself to that interpretation as well. I think personally that it's more helpful to give what some people would call good deconstruction a new term altogether. In the book, I call it transformation. I think spiritual formation is another great way of describing it. All of us have to
when I talked about it, I gave the suggestion of calling it reforming. I actually kind of like that better than transformation, because reforming kind of gives the ideas that we're going back to the Bible. We're reforming. We're not just transforming, but we're reforming into, what the Bible actually says. So, but that's neither here nor there.
Transform our faith over time. No one is given, the perfect recipe for discipleship to Jesus in their early upbringing and apprenticeship. No one comes to faith and gets the handbook that's, without error. All of us transform faith, and all of us.
I agree. And that's what makes me so annoyed with this whole deconstruction movement. Ooh, it's a new thing, It's not really. I mean, in a sense, how they've hijacked the whole deconstruction movement and basically made it about leaving the faith or becoming more progressive. That's what they mean. But questioning your faith is not a new thing. And because people be like, it turns out that I don't believe all the same things that I did that I was raised with. Whoopie-doo. Here's a news flash for you. Neither do I. We all go through change. And if you look at the Christian world, we're all a bit confused. We have so many different denominations and so many different kinds of faith. No one has been able to get everything from the Bible right. And maybe we never will. Everyone's going to think that they have the right, they have the right faith, but who knows? So when you consider that, it's well, no duh, people are going to change their minds on things. I see it happening all the time. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to leave the faith. But you got all these secondary issues in the faith, and it's yeah, changing the way that you think is not a new thing. I think people seem to think that Christianity is all about belief. They view it as a sort of cult where you're supposed to, there are some sects of Christianity that you could consider a cult, but as a whole, Christianity is not a cult. And it's really not expected of you to believe every single thing that you are taught by, whatever church. It's just, yeah. I don't know why they think that it's such a brand new idea to just change your mind on some things, and why we got to brand it as a deconstructing thing. But I don't know. Sorry, I don't know if any of that made sense, but we'll continue.
Let's go through periods where we realize like, oh, I was taught this and I'm not so sure anymore that this is most consistent with the scriptures or with the way of Jesus or with what, really, I mean, centuries of disciples of Jesus all over the world have taught and believed. Or some of us, are handed certain things and within a certain camp, and we realize like, oh, I don't have to have this thing to follow Jesus. This belongs to a certain camp and I can let this thing go. And I'm still within the family. I'm still like a part of the movements, part of the faith. I just, it just depends on context and upbringing and, where you're born, you're part of the world, the story that you've been given, the stories that you've been led to believe. So all of us transform faith. That's part of the spiritual formation process.
And I would say, I was raised in the Assemblies of God denomination, and today I'm not so sure if I'm like 100% on their entire doctrine. Watson, my dog's here. Hey, buddy, come join. Come say hi. Watson's here. Oh. Hey, say hi to the camera. Yeah. Oh, you going to talk? Hello. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. Sorry, had a cute little furry diversion there. But yeah, so I was raised a certain way, and I don't know if I believe every single thing that I was raised to believe. But like Josh said, I haven't left the family or anything. I haven't, I haven't let go of the core doctrines of what it means to be an evangelical Christian. But, so anyways, we will continue.
Growing in maturity as a disciple of Jesus. And it happens inevitably, I think, when one carries out discipleship in the context of community with other disciples of Jesus. If you have that vulnerability and accountability, and you're submitted to the authority of Jesus as not just, teacher, food for thought kind of sage, but as master, Lord, God, and you're submitted to the authority of the scriptures, and you're doing the really difficult work of interpretation. Submitted to the authority of scriptures doesn't just mean like, well, the Bible says it and that's that. Like all of us have to do the really difficult work of interpretation. And we work that out in community. And we don't just have like our immediate community. You have like disciples of Jesus all over the world and wealth of written knowledge from, the history of Christianity. And so, in the book, I make the comparison to the medical community. I think it works very similarly, where if someone comes along and presents some kind of new finding and says, you know what, I actually believe that Windex cures the common cold.
Or COVID.
Or COVID, yeah, there you go. I actually wrote before that part. Yeah, bleach. You can drink bleach and cure COVID.
Yeah.
Then other people within the medical community would be within their rights to say, like, okay, well, that doesn't seem like that's the case. Show us your research. Show us how you got there. Let's see if it conflicts or if it conflicts with pre-existent research or deviates from what we already know to be true scientifically. And if someone comes along with some kind of crazy new thing and it turns out to be, after it's tested, after it's peer-reviewed, that it's true. I can't believe it, but this crazy idea turns out to be true. This fungus is turned penicillin. Now we have penicillin or whatever. The same thing happens within the Orthodox Christian movement, where if someone comes along and says, you know what, I think we've been reading the Bible the wrong way all this time, or I think that, Jesus really meant this when he said that, then it comes under a kind of community peer review, and other people look at it and say, okay, well, tell us how you got there, and let us do the hard work of working through it together. And if, at the end of that journey, it turns out that virtually everyone says, no, that's not what the scriptures say, that's not how that, how we have read that for all this time, then, that's this is a dirty word now, but that's dismissed as a heresy or a false teaching. We're like, that's not true. We don't believe that. That's not what disciples of Jesus believe. And other times it gets kind of brought into the movement and says, like, you know what, this is something we're figuring out. This seems like a valid interpretation. The point is that it happens in community, not just me, Josh, over by myself saying, like, I think that the Bible really means this, and no one's holding me accountable to anything. No one, and I have no vulnerable community interaction where someone's being like, dude, why are you saying these things? Because, I know best,
Yeah, I just, also, hi, Lisa. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the show. Yes. Excuse me. I'm burping because I was drinking some juice. I think that's, that's how it should be. I think those who deconstruct tend to become an island, and they don't converse with, other people in the church, and that's what we need to be doing, because it's okay to question things in your faith. That is perfectly fine. And everyone in their church should feel comfortable to ask questions. And we should be having that, because I think maybe the problem is that more people are questioning their faith, but they're not feeling encouraged enough to talk about it with their pastor or their fellow believers. And I think that's super important, because I think too many people just go on the internet to validate their own beliefs. And, of course you're going to find that. You can find any validation for any belief on the internet. You can believe that the world is flat. You'll definitely find people on this planet that believe that. That doesn't make it right. You may feel like that like, oh, there's so many people out there in the world, and it's like the internet can create that illusion for sure. But it's super important to have those discussions within your local church and to, talk about it. So, yeah.
I think that's all part of transforming faith, of spiritual formation. And, usually, at least in my experience, you can tell when the transforming journey starts to break down into deconstruction, and it usually leads to or is on the heels of wanting to break off from community accountability and vulnerability. When someone says, you know what, I actually think this. And yes, this can obviously go poorly and can be abused, but quite frankly, I have seen people lovingly and humbly come around someone and being like, oh man, tell me why you think that. Tell me what you're going through. Let's figure this out together. Let's pray for you. And inevitably or eventually people come along them and say like, dude, it's just not true. These things that you're saying, they're not true. We want to hold you to a higher standard of allegiance to Jesus, faithfulness to Jesus. And someone says like, I'm out. I don't want people speaking into my life with accountability. And then now they're in isolation, and they go clicking around until they find someone who tells them exactly what they want to hear. And you can find someone to tell you what you want to hear on anything. If you really want, the world to be flat, can find someone to tell you that that's true, or drink bleach, or whatever.
I didn't realize that I stole from from what he said. My bad. Yeah, it's like I listened to this before and forgot what he said.
You can find someone to tell you that that's true, but that usually happens digitally. And that's not transformation. That's deconstruction. So I just think that at this point, differentiating terms is helpful. Spiritual formation is a more tried and true historic term for what happens when we develop and mature and evolve faith. And it does involve changing things that we believe. Deconstruction to me sounds destructive and inevitably leading to deconversion.
Yes. That's all good. That's super good. There is a difference between because of this whole deconstruction movement, there is now a difference between deconstruction and transformation or reformation, whatever you want to say. But deconstruction has turned into this thing where it's like it's designed to pretty much lead people astray. Because those are the people that are running the movement on social media and on TikTok, hashtag deconstructing Christianity. The whole point isn't really to get you to, find your own belief that is more comfortable for you. The point, I believe, is to get you to leave the faith entirely. If not entirely, then for you to join or form some other incorrect formation of Christianity. And a lot of people will say, well, what is correct and what is incorrect? Basically, you go to the Apostles' Creed and, as long as you still believe in everything laid out there, then in my opinion, you're good. There's a lot of secondary stuff that is not in the Apostles' Creed, things having to do with like the Holy Spirit or complementarianism versus egalitarianism, or heck, even critical race theory. Those are secondary stuff. Some of those secondary issues can affect primary issues, but most of that stuff can stay secondary. If you still believe in the primary Apostles' Creed stuff, in my book, you're still a brother or a sister. What was the point that I was trying to get with that? The subjectivity of whether you're a Christian or not, whether it's a false Christianity or not. So, yeah. I think Josh is completely right in encouraging that, there's a difference between transformation and deconstruction. And we need to encourage transformation. I mean, not really encourage transfer. There's a lot of churches there are churches out there that have ministries about deconstruction. And I think that's wrong. But I think what is right is that we develop a culture, and we encourage a culture that makes people comfortable who may have doubts and questions, to be able to have those conversations, to be able to have, voice those doubts and questions, and for it to be a comfortable environment to have those conversations. But also, we still need to be willing to be like, hey, no, I don't think that's right, but still doing it in a loving way. Agent Serenity has a lot to say on the issue. He says, there's a story of a preacher whose name I've forgotten that told a parable of a Christian going to heaven and asking Abraham if there were Baptists, Methodists, etc. in heaven. Abraham replied that there isn't any of those things, just followers of Jesus Christ. Yeah. We should follow the example of the Bereans, who received the word with all eagerness, examining the scriptures daily to see if these things were so, and be in earnest prayer, and to follow tug of the Holy Spirit that Christ left for us as a helper. We must not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. 1 John 4:1, Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, for many false prophets have gone out into the world. Nailed it. Yeah. And you gave a lot more scripture than I was originally going to share, but no, that's great. The Bible does encourage, testing everything, that includes everything that you've been brought up with. I've shared before that I guess I kind of went through my own deconstruction phase. Although I would not call it deconstruction, I would call it reformation or transformation, whatever. I was at a point in my life where I was like, do I believe these things just because that's what was taught to me? Or do I believe them because they're actually true? And I didn't know how to answer that question. And so I started on a journey that's still going on, by the way. I started on a journey of comparing what I had been taught to what the Bible says, to what his word says, and, testing those things, just like what Agent Serenity shared from Scripture. And that's the difference between deconstructing and spiritual transformation or reformation, whatever. Because deconstruction seems to be leading with the ideas that you need to compare your faith to what the world says. You need to take the things that you believed and compare them to quote unquote logic and reason and truth and science. And you need to compare it to what you think your own truth is. So it's kind of confusing sometimes where it's like, yeah, you got to compare your faith to like what is actually real or what your own truth is. Like, is it one or the other? But that's the difference, in my opinion. I've said this before. We need to take, if we are going through doubts and questions, there are two places that we can go. We can go to our own church and converse with our fellow believers and our leaders and pastors, and in God's word. And if you think that you're in a church that doesn't really encourage that, then I just encourage you, I don't know, find another church where you can find that. And that doesn't mean find a church that will affirm your beliefs. Be amongst believers that love you and want and want the best for you, but that will challenge you. Don't just find believers that will affirm what you believe. Find believers who are God-fearing and Bible-believing. So, anyways, I'm really excited to check out Josh's book. I think it's a perfect approach to this whole thing, and I think it's going to add a lot to the conversation. Like I was saying earlier, the whole emotional aspect of it, and just the fact that he went through it himself, and he was in the thick of it, of being amongst all those punk hardcore bands that were starting out as Christian, but they're dropping like flies. He was in the midst of all of that, and so I'm really curious, like, to read what were the reasons why he remained a Christian and why he didn't leave the faith. And I'm really excited about that, and I highly encourage you guys. Honestly, that what I shared was only like 10 minutes of the whole podcast. So go check out that whole, it's just an hour-long podcast wherever you find podcasts. And it's from Provoke and Inspire. And also go to joshuasporter.com. That's where you can pre-order his book. It's out on the 15th. So go check that out. Agent Serenity says, about youth rebellion, as the video touched upon it briefly, we give kids sugar telling them it's gold and then come back and with buyer's remorse, sickly and even more lost than before. They're looking for something genuine, something that gives them purpose, which is why you see them being swept up in these violent protest movements that falsely promise them that they are saving the world. If the older Christians quit being hip and friends with the youth, but instead act as an instructor who has a genuine experience with Christ, we'd see a change. I think that's a good point, and it reminds me, I can't necessarily remember everything that he said, but I remember John Cooper talking about his experience growing up in like the 90s Christian movement and how he did a whole podcast on it, and he was just talking about how the whole movement back then with the evangelical, and a big reason why a lot of like millennials are leaving the faith because they grew up in that era, was because it was like a lot of shallowness, and the focus was more on getting kids hyped up about Christianity rather than giving them meat. They were given a lot of milk and not a lot of meat. And so that was a big problem of what was going on in the 90s. And I think you're right, Agent Serenity, is we're seeing the fruits of that. And I'm doing my best to encourage, like, to our young people, like, we need to be more in the Word, and we need to be getting into the meat of things and not caring so much about, people's feelings and about like whether, maybe we shouldn't talk about this because it's too deep. Like, no. Just a little bit about me. I was gone for a couple of years doing ministry, and, I left that. And I came back here to my hometown. And there were probably 2 or 3 churches that I had been involved in before I left. And I was at a point in my life where I'm like, I love those people. I love all the people in the church, but I was looking for something more. I wanted a church that was hardcore on, teaching the Bible every Sunday, and getting into the Word. And not to say that, pastors can never be topical, but I just felt like that for years I was subjected to a lot of shallow teaching, a lot of motivational speaking, and I was just done with it. I'm like, this is not helpful. I need the Word. And I found a church, shout out to Grace Church here in Bloomington, or I guess Bloomington Normal. Shout out to Grace Church, because like I went there and immediately like I was just getting so much meat. And so that's what I encourage to all churches, all pastors. Don't be afraid of getting into the nitty-gritty of what faith means. Stop looking to examples of like Stephen Furtick and such, of like they're basically just motivational speeches with a little bit of scripture tied in. Like, no. Like, my church, we go through, like, my pastor's sermon series are typically based on, like, what book we're reading through. Other churches are like, we're going to focus this series on financial responsibility or whatever, just as an example. But my church, and every church is different, but I'm just saying that my church, we're like, no, this series is based on the book of Isaiah, and we're gonna go through every single chapter, and it's great. I love it, and I want more churches to do that. Maybe not exactly like that. I mean, I don't know. Just don't be afraid of the deep stuff. Don't be afraid of, the things that are potentially offensive to people. So, where are my glasses? Well, I'm just not. Sorry, I'm just not wearing them because they look terrible. I said at the beginning of the episode, I had to retape them. Sorry, Lisa, because I know that you originally taped them. They came apart again, so I had to retape them, and they just don't look as good as when you tape them. And they just kind of tend to fall apart, and so I'm not really wearing them unless I really need to. So that's what's going on there. So yeah, I think that's all for Yeah, it's okay. I mean, they're still intact, but I just wanted to look good for the stream, you know. So I think that's all for the deconstruction. Again, go check out Joshua Porter's book when it's out, Death to Deconstruction. And go check out the Provoke and Inspire podcast. Just check out the podcast in general, but that's a really good episode with Joshua Porter. He goes into a lot more stuff, and it's really cool. Anyways, so why raccoons? Lisa's putting raccoons in the chat. So we're gonna go get into my humble opinion. Gonna talk about a couple of albums today. I said in the last episode I was going to talk about the Matt Maher album, and I am. The stories I tell myself. And I want to say, with Matt Maher, if anyone has not seen that video of that guy that feeds the raccoons the hot dogs, it is adorable. I love it. And that's what Lisa's referring to in the chat here. But Matt Maher, I have an interesting relationship with Matt Maher, just with his music. I think Matt Maher is like one of the best out there. That is like, he's got like a toe, he's got like a foot in mainstream Christian music. You know, all the stuff that like gets played on the radio, and he's got another foot in more of the alternative kind of sound. He is the one guy that I would say that is like so included, so seeped into the mainstream Christian scene, Christian music scene, that like I'm okay with. He's like sort of in there. His sound is like kind of in there where it's like radio friendly, but it's still like unique. I mean, that's what I like about him, is that he just sounds unique. Like you listen to his music and you know who it is, as opposed to like so many different Christian music, different Christian songs out there where you listen to it and you're like, I don't know who this is. This could be anyone. Other than Jeremy Camp, I guess he's pretty recognizable. But Matt Maher has always like kind of towed the line between like a sort of like alternative folk country sound and like mainstream Christian sound, and he's good at it, and I really like it. You know, I'm not like the biggest fan of Matt Maher, but like I'm okay with him. You know, if anyone came up to me and they're like, I like Mercy Me, I like Chris Tomlin, I like Matt Maher. Okay, he's good. He's a good songwriter as well. So he's like one of the few out there that like his music is like always in the charts, but it's like good, in my opinion. And I wish that more people in the mainstream Christian music scene would follow his example. So the stories I tell myself, I mean, while I say all those things, there is like a part of me that it's like, I wish you would just like go all the way into like the alternative sound, but it's still, especially with this album, it's still, some of it is a little overproduced, and a little shiny, and I kind of wish that it sounded a little bit more dirty, you know, not like with lyricism, I mean with like the sound. I wish he would go like all the way into the, like the alternative country, but he's still got to kind of keep his foot in the, you know, the more mainstream kind of sound, which, you know, whatever. I still don't hate it. I still like it. I think that the stories I tell myself is a little too long. It's got a lot of extra tracks in there. It's got some tracks. It's got some live tracks in there. I'm sorry, I keep getting a frog in my throat. And some of the songs are just like live versions of songs that are already on the album. And it's like, why? Like, why not have that be as like if he released a deluxe version of the album, that would make sense to have live versions of the songs that are already on the album. But especially, he decides to keep both of them in. Not all of them. There are some live songs that are just their own song. And I like that approach. I kind of wish that the whole album was like that, because I realized that I liked the production on the live versions better than the studio versions. Like, the studio versions aren't bad, but I kind of liked the DIY kind of live feel of the live songs. And it's not like they're live concert songs. They're more just like live studio, if that makes any sense. And I just kind of tended to like those better and wish that the whole album was just made like that. And just be, because there are a lot of albums that I really love that, you know, I find out later that it's like, oh yeah, these songs were recorded in one take live in the studio. Agent Serenity says, perhaps we should add an album cover ranking. This one is pretty unique. Yeah, I do like it. You know, he's just, you know, with Matt just kind of in the middle, and it's got a really cool background there. Yeah, I have a lot I do appreciate a good album cover. So that'd be cool. I did a video like years ago of like bad, awkward album covers, Christian album covers, and that was fun. But like, to talk about, you know, good Christian album covers, that would be interesting. That would suck for all the audio listeners, but, you know, whatever. You should be watching the video version anyway, but either way, I don't care. So yeah, Stories I Tell Myself is not bad. I wish it was trimmed down, and I wish that the live versions were picked over the studio versions, and I just wish the whole album was live. But I do really appreciate Matt Maher's songwriting. A lot of the songs are really catchy and really memorable. They're not like, you know, just milquetoast Christian songs that are forgettable. I will say that there's one song that I kind of had a problem with, more on a theological sense, and it's called Common Ground, and it's one of the you know, singles from the album, and it kind of veers on the edge of like critical race theory and such, where it's kind of obvious that it's talking about racial issues because he's singing with this other singer who's you know, African American, and they're talking about unity and being together in common ground, and that's all well and good, but when you go further into the lyrics, it's like your definition of common ground is a little different than mine, because it's kind of teetering on that, with that narrative of like, oh, common ground means that you need to compromise what you believe in to believe what I believe, you know. So it kind of seems like that. So, but others, I do agree with the sentiment of finding common ground with each other, and, you know, finding unity, you know, even if we believe different things. But some of the verses are just like, that's kind of what they seem like, where it's like, no, you need to agree with what I agree with, because that's the right thing. So that's just kind of the vibe that I got from it. Otherwise, the songs are pretty good. And, you know, like I said, I've always appreciated Matt Maher's songwriting. I think he's one of the best out there when it comes to Christian mainstream music. So yeah. I recommend The Stories I Tell Myself, even with the issues that I have with it. It's still solid. I give it like somewhere between a 6 or a 7 out of 10. So, The Stories I Tell Myself, Matt Maher. If you're going to listen to any mainstream Christian music, listen to him. And also, we've been building up to this moment for a while on this show. Caedmon's Call, their remake of their self-titled album, is finally out. Oh, before we get to that, Agent Serenity says, I'm going to share something the Lord gave me when I was struggling with the race issue. If you see your race as a higher status than another, you display the same pride that the devil did when he viewed himself as higher than all of God's creation. Oh yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. I hope people realize that, you know, while I have issues with critical race theory and such, that doesn't mean that I agree with racism or anything, or that I, you know, that I don't think that racism exists. There's a whole issue. If you want to know like my actual opinions on the whole racial topic, you can read Fault Lines by Vody Baucham Jr. But that's what singers should be singing. Yes, I agree. I think racism is, you know, something that we can talk about. I just don't believe in like institutional racism. I don't think that that's really a thing in our country. And it's also a matter of like the things going on with like shootings and such. I think a lot of it is a little inflated beyond what's actually true. So, and just critical race theory in general is, a lot of it is just very anti-gospel, where when you go deep down into it, it's like there's a lot of Christian critical race theorists that are like, you need to get rid of all of your whiteness in order to be a real Christian, and all. It's just weird philosophical stuff. So, but yeah, I agree with you. Anyways, Caedmon's Call. See, this is what happens in my reviews, is that I can't just simply review an album. I have to like get into like my whole theological views, and yeah. Anyways, Caedmon's Call, self-titled remake, 2022 version of their 97 debut album, and it's out. And you know, they had a whole campaign for it, you know, like a Kickstarter campaign, and it finally came out. You know, I've reviewed some of the singles, and you know, it's pretty good. And I think that the album is pretty good. I haven't listened to the original album in a while. There are a few tracks that are available on YouTube, but it's like, it's impossible to find, and it's hard to like compare the whole album to the original, since I don't own it currently. I used to have it, and then I lost it on a computer that you know, I just don't have anymore. So, but from my memory, a lot of the remakes are really solid, and you know, they have a fresh new sound to them. There are some tracks on this album where I'm like, I feel like I prefer the way that they did it on the original album. But that's not to say that any of it is bad. Specifically, I think Stupid Kid, I liked the original way that they did it on the original album. They kind of approached it a little differently on this album. The original track of Stupid Kid had like more of a quirky kind of sound to it. And this one has a little bit more of a rock version, a rock approach to it. But still, there's still some tracks on here that really shine out, specifically a lot of the Derek Webb tracks, you know, like the Derek Webb written ones, like Center Aisle is still strong, and Standing Up for Nothing, and Not the Land. I think there's something about the production of Not the Land that I preferred the original over, but yeah. So I think if you're a fan of the original album, that you're going to like this album, but it's hard not to compare the two. And in all honesty, Derek Webb's voice has changed. Not to say that it's like worse or better or anything, but Derek Webb definitely had some like more, a different kind of, it sounded a little different. I don't know how to explain it, but like a little bit maybe more of a twang back in the day. And I think he just kind of had a little bit more oomph to his voice back in the day. So there are some parts of this album where it's like, I kind of liked how his voice sounded in the original better because he kind of just had some more power to it. But he still sounds good. And with all my problems with his faith, aside, it's fine. I mean, he definitely was he was a Christian when he wrote these songs. So that's the other thing, is that there are a couple new tracks on this album. So it's not entirely a remake of the original album. There's some new tracks on here. And there's a acapella song called I Will Sing that's more of kind of like an intro to the Rich Mullins cover, Hope to Carry On. And it's good. But there's another, I can't remember the name of it. There's a final track that they added to the album, April Showers. And I gotta say, I didn't like that song. It's like they took the rain go away, and they made that the chorus, but just with a few lyrical tweaks to it. And I just kind of found it annoying. I didn't think it was that great. I felt like, it's been so long that they could have put a little bit more effort into making a better songs. Agent Serenity, that sounds like cringe incarnate, LOL. It was kind of cringe, honestly. The rest of the album is pretty solid, but that final track is like, why? So I don't really understand the point of it, but either way, I was very happy to hear some returns to my favorite songs like Bus Driver and I Just Don't Want Coffee. And those still sound good. I actually even said, I think this Bus Driver version is better than the original, I think. So, and I Just Don't Want Coffee, which is my actual favorite one, is really good still. So, some great songwriting that was from the '97 version, and that's not changed in this album except for that one bonus track. But yeah, so if you're a fan of Caedmon's Call, and if you, especially if you liked the self-titled album, check it out for sure. I recommend it. I kind of also just wish that they would just remaster the original and release that as well, because like you can't find it anywhere. It's not on any streaming or anything. And the whole album isn't even on YouTube. You could probably buy the CD like on eBay or something, but yeah, it's like really hard to find. So for people who want the original, I think that they should just release it. They should release them like a remastered version or something. I don't know. I don't know if they even have access to it. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's like a label thing, but anyways. So yeah, that is my humble opinion. And this stream has actually gone a long time, and I didn't really expect it to. A bit of announcement before we go. I just wanted to let you guys know that in the month of December, I am choosing to take a break from the I'm Clifford Today show. I'm probably still going to do like the gaming live streams that I do, because those are fun, but it does take a lot of work for me to prepare for these shows. And Clifford's gaming stream on his Christian Minecraft server when I've been trying to do them. It's with my schedule change, it's been difficult to always. I may not be able to do a gaming stream tomorrow because like the weekends are the only time that I can do things. And so me hanging out with friends, takes, it's kind of a priority for me. So I'm sorry to anyone who's missed Stronghold streams. It has been a couple weeks. It's not been intentional, but so I try to do them when I can. I'm actually looking for another job so that I can maybe go back to my original schedule. But yeah, I'm going to take a break in the month of December from the I'm Clifford Today show So that means we got one more episode before December. However, this may end up being the last live stream, the last I'm Clifford Today live stream, because I'm pretty sure that's the weekend that I'm going to be gone out of town. So it might have to be a pre-recorded episode. So I'm sorry to everyone, to anyone who likes to hang out in the chat. This might be the last one for a little while until after the holidays, because December is just a crazy time, you know, and it's very busy, of course. And I actually have a lot of prepping to do, because when we come back, and I guess I'll make it like a season thing. So it'll be we're coming to the end of season 1, and we're going to start season 2 in January. I'm going to go make a return to the my top 10 best and worst Christian pop songs of the year. I did it in 2020 as a more edited thing, and I'm like, that took a lot of work, and so I didn't really want to do that again. But I think I can do it in like in a live stream form. But I have a lot of prepping to do. I got a lot of songs to get to like listen to. And so December is going to give me that opportunity to be able to do that. And so I will have, in the month of January, I'm going to be doing top 10 best Christian pop songs of 2022, top 10 worst Christian pop songs of 2022. Agent Serenity is excited. Awesome. I may even do a list of like my favorite Christian albums in general. Maybe. And maybe my favorite Christian songs. Not pop songs, but just songs in general. So we'll see. But definitely going to do a top 10 best Christian pop songs and top 10 worst Christian pop songs. So I'm excited. It's something that I enjoyed doing, but just like took a lot of work. And I'm like, do I really want to do this all year? Because it took me a long time to make those 2020 videos. I don't know if you guys remember. And I'm working on those other videos, and I want those to get done. I've barely even tipped the iceberg with my John James video, honestly, because I've had a lot of footage to go through. He's got a lot of testimonies out there in the wild, and I'm just kind of going through them to find the best videos, you know? So, and I got a lot of videos on the back burner that I want to work on. So, yeah. Just wanted to let you guys know, taking a break in December, and the next episode is probably not going to be a live stream, most likely. So I'll miss you guys, but it's going to be a much needed break, I think. So, yeah. I think that is everything for now. Next episode, I'm going to review Switchfoot has a new Christmas album. There's a Songs of Rich Mullins compilation, and also Gable Price and Friends, who I just started listening to. They have a new album. So I'm going to do my best to listen to those and talk about it. And I don't really know what else I'm going to talk about in the next episode. We'll see. But anyways, I think that should do it for today, for this weekend. Thanks, everyone. I love you too, Lisa. Thanks, everyone, for checking out the I'm Clifford Today show. Leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we'll give you a shout out on the show. Check out my other podcast, Podwood Forecast, that I do with my friend Mitchell. We did an episode on My Chemical Romance and The Chariot. So go check that out. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you like what you saw and what you heard today. Also remember, I got merch, so link in the description if you want some shirts. And like I said, I'm working on my John James video and a couple other smaller videos as well, so those will be out when they're out. Yeah, Also, be on the lookout for my community posts on YouTube. I'm doing those more, and I love interacting with you guys. Thanks for all the feedback that you've given me. But, yeah, until next time, you guys have a blessed weekend, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. And remember, I'm Clifford today, and you're not. I realize I don't say that enough. But anyways, bye, everybody.